Supreme Court representatives to please move a little to the center along with the POW and the other resource persons for the creation of courts. Makikisuyo po. We're just few here. Please move to the center. The committee secretary is directed to read the title of the bills and the respective authors who shall then deliver their sponsorship speech. We are on the second part of our hearing proper, the initial consideration and approval of 12 bills regarding creation of court salas. COMSEC, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. House Bill number 232, an act creating one additional branch of the Regional Trial Court in the 10th Judicial Region to be stationed in the Municipality of Quezon, Province of Bukidnon, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14K of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore, filed by Representative Audrey K.T. Zubiri. House Bill number 316, an act creating an additional regional trial court to be stationed in the city of Victorias, province of Negros Occidental, amending for the purpose Section 14, Paragraph G of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore, filed by Representative Javier Miguel L. Benitez. And also, House Bill number 709, an act creating an additional regional trial court branch to be stationed in the Silay City, province of Negros Occidental, amending for the purpose Section 14, Paragraph G of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill number 786, an act creating one additional branch of the Regional Trial Court in the 6th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of Kabangkalan, province of Negros Occidental, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14G of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980, as amended, filed by Representative Mercedes K. Alvarez. House Bill number 787, an act creating one additional branch of the Regional Trial Court in the 6th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of Sipalay, province of Negros Occidental, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14G of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative Mercedes K. Alvarez. House Bill number 1518, an act creating 3 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court in the 6th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of Pasig and in the municipality of Dumangas, province of Iloilo, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14G of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative Fergenel G. Bayron, MD. House Bill number 1544, an act creating one additional branch of the Municipal Trial Court in the 10th Judicial Region to be stationed in the municipality of Socorro, province of Surigao del Norte, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 30 of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative Francisco Lalo T. Matugas. House Bill number 1579, an act creating 2 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court in the 7th Judicial Region to be stationed in the municipalities of Candihay and Valencia, province of Bohol, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14H of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative Christine Alexi B. Tutor. House Bill number 2078, an act creating one additional branch of the Regional Trial Court in the 9th Judicial Region to be stationed in the municipality of San Miguel, province of Zamboanga del Sur, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14J of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative J. Said Victoria CU. House Bill number 2659, an act creating one additional branch of Municipal Trial Court in cities in the 4th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of General Trias, province of Cavite, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 29 of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative Antonio A. Ferrer. House Bill number 3427, an act creating 3 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court in the 4th Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of General Trias, province of Cavite, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14E of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, similarly filed by Representative Antonio A. Ferrer. And finally, House Bill number 3122, an act creating one additional branch of the Regional Trial Court in the 1st Judicial Region to be stationed in the municipality of La Paz, province of Abra, appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Section 14A of Batas Pambansa Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, filed by Representative J.B. Bernos.
Meanwhile, we acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Chair, Antonio Ferrer, of the Committee on Games and Amusement. You may want to join us here, sir. We also acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Marcelino Marcy R. Teodoro from the 1st District of City of Marikina. Thank you, Kong, for coming. And now we will be proceeding to the sponsorship speeches of the sponsors of these House bills. To begin with, House Bill 232, we recognize the Honorable Representative Audrey K.T. Zubiri. You may proceed, Kong.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning to everyone. I would like to emphasize that this bill was actually already approved on 3rd reading and transmitted to the Senate last 19th Congress. Unfortunately, they ran out of time and it was not fully approved. But now, I am refiling it again, and I would like to remind everyone that from the 19th Congress to now, 20th Congress, of course, the population has continuously increased, and therefore the urgency for the passage of this bill is even more important now. And so with that, I move to adopt my explanatory note as my sponsorship for House Bill 232, creating one additional branch of the RTC in the 10th Judicial Region in the municipality of Quezon, province of Bukidnon. Thank you very much.
The explanatory note is hereby adopted as the sponsorship speech of the author. Now we proceed to House Bill number 316 and 709. The Honorable Representative Javier Miguel L. Benitez is recognized.
Madam Chair,
Honorable Flores is recognized.
for in behalf of Representative Miguel Benitez, Madam Chair, I would like to move that the explanatory note attached to the bill be considered the sponsorship speech for the said bills, Madam Chair.
The explanatory notes in House Bill 316 and 709 are hereby adopted as sponsorship speeches of the author. Now we proceed to House Bill number 786 and 787. The Honorable Representative Mercedes K. Alvarez is recognized. Honorable Flores.
Madam Chair, for in behalf of Representative Mercedes Alvarez, for House Bills number 786 and 787, I move that the explanatory note attached to the said bills be considered as their sponsorship speeches.
The explanatory notes are hereby adopted as sponsorship speeches. Now we proceed to House Bill 1518. The Honorable Representative D.S., Deputy Speaker Virginal G. Biron, MD, is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this measure was approved in the House of Representatives on 3rd reading and transmitted to the Senate in the 19th Congress, I move that my explanatory note be adopted as my sponsorship speech for House Bill number 1518. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The explanatory note is hereby adopted as sponsorship speech for 1518. Now we proceed to House Bill 1544. The Honorable Representative Francisco Lalo T. Matugas is recognized. Please proceed, sir.
Madam Chair, House Bill 1544 has been passed on third reading during the 19th Congress, and I am refiling this bill with the explanatory note as my sponsorship.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
The explanatory note is hereby adopted as the sponsorship speech of the author. Now we proceed to House Bill 1579. The Honorable Representative Christine Alexi Bichutor is recognized.
Madam Chair, on
The
behalf
Honorable
of,
Zamora is recognized.
on behalf of Representative Tutor, I adopt the explanatory note of House Bill number 1579 as the sponsorship speech of Representative Tutor.
The explanatory note is adopted as sponsorship speech for House Bill 1579. Now we proceed to House Bill 2078. The Honorable Representative J.C. Victoria C.U. is recognized.
Madam Chair,
Honorable Flores.
on behalf of Representative J.C. Victoria Yu, for House Bill number 2078, may we move that the explanatory note attached to the bill be considered as a sponsorship speech, Madam Chair.
The explanatory note is adopted as the sponsorship speech of the author. Now we proceed to House Bill 2659 and 3427. The Honorable Representative Antonio A. Ferrer is recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Chair, you are recognized.
Thank you. House Bill number 3427 has been approved several times during the 10th, 15th Congress, 18th Congress, and 19th Congress. All these have been passed on third reading. But lagi yung inaabot ng ano to sa Senado dahil mag-e-election.
Adjournment.
So we're hoping na by this time inagahan namin baka maipasa na to. So I respectfully move that the explanatory notes on House Bill numbers 3427 and 2659 be the sponsorship message for these measures.
The explanatory note of 2659 and 3427 are adopted as the sponsorship speeches of the principal author. Finally, we proceed to House Bill 3122. The Honorable Representative J.B. Bernos is hereby recognized.
Madam Chair,
Honorable Flores.
for our House Bill number 3122, for on behalf of Representative J.B. Bernos, I move that the explanatory note attached to the bill be considered as its sponsorship speech, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The explanatory note of 3122 is hereby adopted as the explanatory note of the sponsor of the bill. Now we will be proceeding to the comment and manifestation of our resource persons. We have invited the court administrator, Supreme Court, and of course the Department of Budget and Management and the Public Attorney's Office. As stated earlier, the Department of Justice is seeking for their excuse considering their official engagements. We decided to hear the comment and manifestations altogether, considering that these are all creation of courts. Comsec, please. The Court Administrator, Honorable Lilian C. Baribalco, Deputy Court Administrator from the Supreme Court, is recognized. Ma'am.
Good morning to everyone, Madam Chair, and to the honorable members of the committee. In behalf of the Chief Justice, the Honorable Alexander G.S. Mundo, and the newly appointed Court Administrator, the Honorable Maria Teresa Dolores Gomez Estoesta, we would like to thank the committee for this invitation to participate in the deliberation and discussion for the creation of new and additional courts nationwide. Your Honors, allow me to mention that the baseline citation of the different courts were indicated in the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980. And 45 years after, we really recognize the need for the creation of additional courts for the effective and efficient dispensation of justice. Needless to emphasize, due to the growing population, the increasing commercial transactions in the locality, the increasing caseloads of every existing courts would really justify the creation of the newly created or additional courts as proposed by our honorable members of the committee. Your Honors, allow me to briefly state our comment on each of the House Bill. For House Bill 232, we really need the RTC, new RTC in the municipality of Quezon, although let me mention, Your Honors, that the municipality of Quezon is supposed to be included in the territorial jurisdiction of the soon-to-be organized RTC of Valencia, Bukidnon. But with the number of municipalities under the territorial jurisdiction of Valencia, Bukidnon, it would also be appropriate to support the creation of one RTC in the municipality of Quezon, taking into consideration that for now, there are almost more than 4,000 cases in this jurisdiction, Your Honor. For the House Bill 316, for the city of Victorias, Negros Occidental, and Silay City, we only have 2 RTCs in Silay City, and there is no RTC in the city of Victoria. So, because this is our progressive cities right now, we expect more cases to be filed, and therefore, we support the creation of the RTC in Victoria and additional RTC in Silay City, because for now, there are almost 3,000 cases in the Regional Trial Court of Silay City. For House Bill 786, Your Honors, for the city of Cabancalan and Sipalay, there is only 1 RTC in Cabancalan and 1 RTC in Sipalay, and the growing number of cases filed in both cities because of the growing population and the increasing commercial transactions would really justify the creation of additional RTC in Sipalay and additional RTC in Cabancalan City. Your Honor, for House Bill 1518, for the city of Pasig and the municipality of Dumangas, right now we only have 1 RTC that caters the municipalities of Dumangas, Borotac Nuevo, Dinglen, Duenas, San Enrique, Pototan, and Mina, and the city of Pasig. And therefore, for today's, the caseload as of July is almost 2,200 cases for only 1 regional trial court, and therefore, the creation of the 2 regional trial court in the city of Pasig and for Dumangas will really alleviate our courts in this jurisdiction. Your Honor, for the 1554 House Bill, the decircuitization of our Municipal Circuit Trial Court in Dapa and Socorro, Surigao del Norte, Surigao del Norte. Your Honors, based on our records, really the caseload is manageable. But you see, for the Socorro litigants to go to Dapa, which we were informed need to ride in a boat. So, while the caseload would not perhaps justify the creation, but to assist our litigants in order for them not to travel from Socorro to Dapa. So we also support the creation of the decircitization rather of the MCTC of Dapa and Socorro to have two separate municipal trial court in Dapa and in Socorro, Surigao del Norte. For the Kandihay and Valencia Bohol RTC, right now the Kandihay jurisdiction is stationed in only one regional trial court of Carmen, and for the Valencia Bohol, they are included in the territorial jurisdiction of Loway Bohol. And based on the records of the Office of the Court Administrator, the caseload in Carmen Bohol and Loway Bohol is more than the ideal caseloads of our regional trial court, and therefore we support the creation of regional trial court, one in Kandihay and one in Valencia Bohol. For the municipality of San Miguel, Zamboanga del Sur, we only have one RTC in San Miguel, Zamboanga del Sur. This is a single sala court, which as of July 31 has more than 1,000 caseload. And therefore, the creation of another RTC in the municipality of San Miguel will also declog our courts in San Miguel, Zamboanga del Sur. For the General Trias, Cavite, Your Honors, there are actually no regional trial courts in the General Trias City. What we have is only one municipal trial court, which has although a manageable caseload, but because this is also a city, being a progressive city, we also support the creation of the regional trial court in the General Trias City, which is now currently under the jurisdiction of 13 Martires. And 13 Martires regional trial courts has for now almost 4,500 cases. So the creation of the General Trias Regional Trial Court would really help our litigants in this area. And lastly, Your Honor, for the Regional Trial Court of La Paz Abra, La Paz Abra right now is under the jurisdiction of RTC Bangued Abra, and cumulatively, all our Abra RTC has more than 1,600 cases, and for them, we would like to bring them onto an ideal caseload per court, and therefore we support the creation of one additional regional trial court to be stationed in La Paz Abra. In fine, Your Honors, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee, allow me to mention that we would like to thank you all for the creation of this additional or new courts, because this will definitely give or provide timely and fair delivery of justice, which is also one of the guiding principles of the present blueprint and roadmap of the Supreme Court, the strategic plan for judicial innovation. Thank you so much, Your Honors, for this opportunity.
The committee thank as well the Office of the Court Administrator for expressing their support to all these bills, being the one on top of the mandate of administering justice. We owe it to the Supreme Court also the support that you're extending to the initiatives of the members of the House.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Court Administrator. Now let's hear from the Public Attorney's Office, please. Attorney Almendral is recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. The Public Attorney's Office is very grateful because once again, you've put into consideration our office with regard to the creation of new and or additional courts. Allow me to read the comments of the Public Attorney's Office with regard to these various bills.
Yes, please.
As always, this office lauds and supports the aforementioned bills as they seek to address the country's need to decongest the court dockets of voluminous cases successfully filed for trial to further enhance the people's access to justice and to aid in the speedy and efficient administration of justice amidst the growing population and needs of our country. No less than the 1987 Constitution guarantees the people's right to free access to courts and quasi-judicial bodies and to have a speedy disposition of their cases. It must be acknowledged that one factor which hinders the exercise of the said constitutional right is court congestion. Courts are being congested due to the additional new cases that are filed each day, which are too much for some presiding judges to handle, resulting in clogged court dockets. Inevitably, this would result to slower rates of dispositions and will ultimately lead to the deterioration of the public's trust and confidence towards the judicial system. As the population increases, the necessity to respond to these needs is thus inevitable. The creation of additional branches of court that are stationed in the correct places is the best remedy to address court congestion and to afford growing number of litigants their constitutional right to free access before the courts. This is the most important one, Madam Chair. Nonetheless, while the Public Attorney's Office fully supports the above all the aforementioned bills, as in other similar proposed legislations, and is certainly committed to faithfully discharge its mandate to aid in the government on its trust to give life to every Filipino's constitutional right, and where the need to include with the indulgence, of course, of everyone, and of course, Madam Chair, our office would like to emphasize the need to include a provision with regard to these various House bills, and where there shall be an automatic appointment and designation of a public attorney and the necessary staff for operation, both in the plantilla position for every creation of a court sala in every jurisdiction in the country, which is and should be a necessary consequence to every additional or creation of new courts. And this would entail stationing one public attorney per organized sala, which would include, of course, the staff. So, of course, we are always very supportive of adding new and additional courts, but sana po, and we pray and hindi po makalimutan that, of course, with the creation of new courts, sana po, bit-bit din po yung pag-create ng new plantilla positions for the Public Attorney's Office. That's all, Madam Chair, and that's all for the Public Attorney's Office.
We totally agree with you, Pao. But of course, we are anticipating a lot of concerns that would be coming from the agency who will be providing the necessary appropriation. No? But definitely, we agree, it's hard to conceive the creation of the court without the people who will be working therein. Thank you, Pao.
Madam Chair.
Di na ito makaintay. The Honorable Flores is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to, I would like to thank the Supreme Court first for supporting all these bills. But my question is really, I've asked Justice Maidas about this before when he was administrator, Justice Raul when he was also administrator, because the problems that we'll be having is that we always create new courts, but it takes a long time to fill them. DBM has already funded it, yet takes years po before, funded. That's why I'm asking the court administrator. No? I've asked Maidas, I've asked Justice Villanueva, and they've all given me the same answers that they will endeavor to fill up these organized courts.
Okay, so let's hear from Deputy Court Administrator ko.
Okay, Your Honors, if allow me to respond to that. Once we receive the release of funds from the Department of Budget and Management, the first thing that we are going to fill up, Your Honor, is the judge's position. So we request the Judicial and Bar Council to open for application the judge position of the newly created courts. Now, with all due respect, Your Honor, I am not very familiar on how the JBC, the timeline for the application of for the JBC. Although right now, all their applications are already online, online filing. But this will also entail time, Your Honors, because once they receive, there would be interviews to be conducted, and the Judicial and Bar Council, actually, they were already the one who proceed to the different places for to go to proceed on interview. And after that, once the judge is appointed, that's the only time that we can start to organize the court, Your Honor.
Yeah, I understand the process. No, but who tells the JBC to open the particular branch for appointment?
The Office of the Court Administrator.
The Office of the Court
Yes.
Administrator, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because let me give you an example po. No? A bill was passed in 2013 creating 4 new RTCs in the province of Bukidnon. 4 new RTCs. And the first appointment of the judge in one of the 4 RTCs there was in 2022. Po. Almost 10 years after the bill was filed. And when we checked with the DBM, it was already funded like months after or a year after it was passed. So all these years po, that court has been organized and been funded but has not yet been filled for 9 years. And that's not a problem that's just existing in my district. It's all over po. No? So I'm sure it's not for the want of applicants. There are a lot of applicants that file for applications for the judges, no? But it's not that po. I just want to know exactly where is the delay. No, kasi it's not with DBM, it's funded.
Yes, Your Honor, we apologize for that. But we recognize that previously there were really the vacancy rate was really some quite high. But right now, Your Honors, we are committed that all vacant positions are already submitted to the Judicial and Bar Council for immediate opening. Once a vacancy has, for the existing court, for example, Your Honors, because of retirement or death, we always immediately inform the JBC to open that. And as I mentioned earlier, Your Honor, once we receive from the DBM that the court is already funded, we submit that to the JBC for the opening. But we really apologize for that delay, Your Honor.
Yeah, I understand po. You mentioned earlier na mas mababa na po yung rates ngayon no, of the vacancies.
Yes po.
Can you give me figures po?
Doon po sa aming sinabit na during the budget deliberation,
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, if previously we have more than 25% vacant, now we are less than between 15 to 20% vacant na lang po tayo, Your Honor.
15 to 20% vacant.
18% to be exact, Your Honor.
18%. Okay. Now, so itong vacancies na to, hindi to newly created courts.
Nandiyan na po,
Mixture na.
mix na po ito.
Okay.
So lahat na po siya.
Can we ask the DBM na lang po kung do you have figures din po kung from the time that a bill was passed and from the time that you funded it to the time that it's actually filled by the Supreme Court? May figures kayo, may data kayo about that?
Good afternoon. Good morning, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee. What we have po is the authorized field and unfilled positions po as of the moment.
Okay. So do you have figures on ilan yung unfilled?
Medyo iba lang po.
Yes.
sa Supreme Court.
I think you have a more accurate.
Your figures pertains to newly created courts?
For the whole Supreme Court na po,
Yeah,
Madam
okay.
Chair.
Can you give us the figures?
So, for the Supreme Court, their authorized positions is 38,956 po. And currently, for our records po, the field positions are 27,119.
Oh, so that's higher.
So, the unfilled positions po, has 11,837.
Unfilled position.
Unfilled
And
position.
in terms of percentage,
That's for computing po, it's
30%.
30.39%.
And ilan po dyan ang judges?
We will double check po.
Okay. Kasi we really need that eh. Kasi, you know, we keep creating courts because nga, we don't want to delay the wheels of justice, no? But then, the delay is not actually in the creation of the courts. It's actually the filling of these courts that were newly created. And again, I hate to say this again and again, no? But I've heard the same answers coming from Maidas, from Villanueva, and I hope that this time po, we will see siguro better figures coming from the Supreme Court. Kasi sayang po eh. All these congressmen here want to have speedy disposition of the cases, di ba? And that's why we all want to create more courts. But then if the delay is on the filling up of these courts po, then it's useless to create new courts. Nasasayang lang po yung budget ng DBM that goes to the funded courts but remain unfilled. And I've been harping about this since my first term po. It's my third term now. Wala pa rin.
Your Honor, on the part of the Office of the Court Administrator, we will make commitment to fast-track and facilitate the filling up of the position for the judge position, Your Honor.
I think you need to have a dialogue with the JBC.
Or
The
perhaps
chair
they're
is
going to
actually a member of the JBC.
Yes, Your Honor.
But since it is the Office of the Court Administrator who is representing the Supreme Court now, and for the purpose of addressing this concern of the Honorable Flores, I think that formal dialogue should be taken with the Judicial and Bar Council.
We will do that. I will relay this concern immediately to the court administrator, who is the member of the Judicial and Bar Council.
I
Your
understand that the selection and nomination process is very tedious,
Yes, Your
but of
Honor.
course we can come up with something to be able to fast track
Facilitate.
the selection and the nomination. Because after the JBC process, it will go to the Office of the President, so it really takes long to fill in a vacancy.
Ganito na, can we ask from the Supreme Court na lang po? Ganito, in the past 10 years, ilan yung courts that are newly created? And the date when it was created, the date when it was funded, and the date when it was filled. Just for the last 10 years na lang, para hindi guesswork lang. No? Let's really see gaano katagal yung delays and where the delays usually occur, so that we can at least try to remedy it.
Yes, Your Honor, we will
10
do
years
that.
po.
10 years po.
Thank you, Madam.
2015, Your
Yes,
Honor.
ma'am. Thank you.
po.
May we know when the Deputy Court Administrator can submit that data?
Today is Wednesday. Perhaps next week po, if
Next Wednesday. That will be reasonable. Thank you, ma'am.
Salamat po.
Any other comment, Honorable Flores?
No more, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we proceed to DBM for comment and manifestation to the pending bills.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee and to our fellow public servants. So, regarding po the creation of the bills, first of all, we would like to note that the Supreme Court already has a standard staffing pattern. So we trust the Supreme Court that the creation of the positions should be compliant with the prescribed personnel complement of each sala. And then also for the organizational and staffing modification of the Supreme Court should be in accordance with Republic Act 12233 or the Judicial Fiscal Autonomy Act, particularly...
If I may interrupt, ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
did I hear you correctly? The creation of the court must be accompanied by the creation of the proper staffing pattern.
Yes po, Madam Chair.
Are you referring to the Supreme Court staff
Yes po. May
Only.
standard staffing na po.
only?
Yes po.
So it doesn't include yet the prosecutor who will be representing
Hindi.
the
Opo.
OJ and the PAO?
Hindi pa po sa Supreme
Because
Court pa
no
lang po
court
yan.
will be able to work
Yes po.
without the fiscal and the PAO.
Yes
So
po,
I
Madam
hope
Chair.
when you included the complete staffing pattern in the creation of the court, we should include as well the creation of the necessary position for the PAO and for the prosecution.
Actually, Madam Chair, the standard staffing pattern was from the Supreme Court po. Nevertheless po, for the PAO po, and their support staff shall be based on the prescribed ratio stipulated under RA 171 po, or the Prosecution Service Act. So,
Nonetheless, I think the mathematics is very simple there. You created a sala, you created a court, you need to create a position for PAO and a position for prosec. Otherwise, they will be overburdened, appearing in several branches. No? One PAO taking care of 2 or 3 branches of the RTC. That is very tedious. And sometimes these branches are located in different places. I can say that because I was once in the litigation. No? So let us be fair to the DOJ people. If you are providing a complete staffing pattern for the creation of the court, we should provide as well a representative for the prosecution and a representative for the PAO.
yes po, Madam.
That is if our intention is to make that court work as soon as possible. Thank you.
Noted po, Madam Chair. So, we will coordinate po with the Supreme Court if they can adjust their standard staffing pattern to already include the PAO
They are
unit.
different branches actually. The PROSEC belongs to DOJ. The PAO belongs to DOJ also. So I think it is the DOJ you need to coordinate with. That every time there will be a court creation with a complete staffing pattern of the judiciary, there must be a corresponding creation as well from the DOJ to represent both the PROSEC and the Public Attorney's Office.
Noted po, Madam Chair.
Oh, is that noted a commitment?
Yes.
Magagalit si Honorable Flores. Because still, that court will not work. Even with the judge and the stenographer and the clerk of court, that cannot conduct a hearing without a fiscal and the PAO.
Yes, Madam Chair. Agencies can submit naman po the creation of positions, and the same shall be evaluated and approved by the DBM to ensure consistency po with the existing laws po. So,
Siguro
agencies can submit po.
let's ask OIC Secretary Vida to make the necessary communication with the Supreme Court and the DBM to create the necessary positions along with the creation of the court.
Yes
Thank
po.
you. And now your comment for the bills?
Yes po, Madam Chair. Finally po, we noted po that the same should be in accordance po with the recently passed Judiciary Fiscal Autonomy Act, particularly sections 7 and 8 po of the said bill. That is all po, Madam Chair. Thank you po. On Section 7 po, it pertains to the creation of offices and reorganization of the administrative structure of the Supreme Court. And on Section 8 po, the salary and personal administration po of the Supreme Court. Thank you po.
Now, I believe we are done with the manifestation, interpellations, and debate. And it has been manifested earlier that most of these bills were approved during the third and the final reading of the previous Congress. So this is a proper subject matter as well of Section 48 of the Rules of Congress. Some were approved on the second reading. So with that, may I hear a motion from the members of the committee?
Madam Chair, considering
Honorable Flores.
the bills filed in the creation of new and additional courts in various parts of the country have been approved on third reading by the House during the 19th Congress and transmitted to the Senate, or were approved on second reading by the House, I move for the omnibus motion or omnibus approval of all the bills creating new and additional courts as well as their corresponding committee reports subject to form and style.
Second.
There is a motion. The same is seconded. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion for the omnibus approval of all the bills creating courts, House Bill 232, 316, 709, 786, 787, 1518, 1544, 1579, 2078, 2659, 3427, and 3122 are hereby approved.
Chair,
The Honorable
I
Rodriguez is
move that all of
recognized.
those present earlier and present now be considered as co-authors of this bill. They were here earlier, but they have to go to other committees.
There is a motion to include the members of the committee as co-authors of all these bills. Do I hear a second?
Those present, Madam Chair.
The same has been seconded. Those who are present only.
Yes.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion to include the present members as co-authors of these bills is hereby granted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe that we need also a motion for the approval of committee reports towards the approval of all these bills. Can I hear a motion from the members?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the committee report in relation to these bills.
There's a motion to approve the committee report. Is there any second? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the committee report, the motion for the approval of the committee report supporting all these bills is hereby approved as well. There is a pahabol manifestation from the DBM. Let's hear from DBM.
Opo. Thank you, Madam Chair. To answer po yung question po ni Honorable
Flores.
po. For our records po, we have 711 unfilled judges po. Based po out of the
Ilang percent yan?
Ng 11,000 po for a while po, Madam Chair. Maliit lang naman po if sa judges po.
But does it pertain to newly created courts? All of them are...
All po. All
halo na siya.
Authorized positions po ng
Hindi mo rin
Supreme Court.
yan.
711 yan, ano?
Would you like to request a data from her for newly
Mga 6%
created courts
lang.
only?
No, that's 11,000 is the total unfilled. Eh.
Yes po.
That does not that includes other positions.
Opo, and of which po 711 po yung
Okay.
judges.
Yeah. But 700 out of how many judges nationwide? Yun lang. It should be a different percentage. Thank you.
Perhaps it's best, DBM, if you will just submit a data. And I wish to see also that number of, I think so, the judges' position for newly created courts which remains unfilled. I think that's the concern of the Honorable Flores. No? So we can compare that with the data which will be submitted by the Office of the Court Administrator. Thank you for your cooperation, DBM. I think we are finished with our second item. So the resource persons who were invited for our second item are now excused. By the way, this is a working lunch. Our lunch is sponsored by Congresswoman Ann Matibag. Everybody is encouraged to take their lunch. And without any delay, we will be proceeding to our third item. The third item of our committee hearing is the motu proprio inquiry in aid of legislation. I lament that the principal agency referred to as the Central Authority for the purpose of the Philippine extradition law is not present in today's hearing. Nonetheless, we are in receipt of the copy of the proposed extradition bill from the DOJ, and we are sharing this extradition bill of the DOJ to the members of the committee for reference. I wish to advance the intention of the chair to sponsor the proposed bill for the Philippine extradition bill from the DOJ. We will be sponsoring the same, and I hope the other members of the committee will be joining us in supporting the amendment of the Philippine extradition law, which is one of the oldest laws also in the country. No, we have identified various gaps in our existing extradition law. We also went over the rules which was issued by the Supreme Court pertaining to the implementation of the extradition law, and I just wish to manifest that they incorporated the temporary vis-a-vis deferred surrender, which was not even mentioned in the Philippine extradition law. So I don't know how to react on this, that the procedural law appears to be beyond the substantive law. The way I see it, no? The more that we see the need to amend our existing Philippine extradition law. Nonetheless, based on our initial evaluation of the proposed bill of the DOJ for the Philippine extradition law, I believe that that is comprehensive and it addresses the gaps already. Nevertheless, we will be setting the discussion of the provisions of this proposed extradition bill along with the DOJ perhaps on the next hearing. Nevertheless, I understand that the other resource persons are here because we invited the Department of Foreign Affairs and the AMLA. Tama? Thank you for coming. So, for now, I wish to ask whether our requested data or information from the last hearing were duly submitted to the committee.
Chair, before that,
Honorable Rodriguez.
I would just like to signify my intention after your explanation that this is really a very important bill to amend the extradition law. I wish to state that I would want to become a co-author with the Honorable Chairman Luistro. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Rodriguez. I'm
Madam
sure
Chair,
that
I also wish to
Honorable
manifest that-
Lagbas.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lagbas. Who else would like to signify intention to co-author the bill? I think Honorable Flores is interested also, and Honorable Matibag, and Honorable Zamora. How about Honorable Subiri? She would like to co-author also the bill of the DOJ, no? Okay, thank you for signifying your intentions to co-author this bill. And for now, let us hear from the Department of Foreign Affairs. I understand that we requested for a certified information as to whether or not there is really a request from the U.S. Embassy for the extradition of Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy. Let's hear from the FA.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We've sent a letter, ma'am, previously as requested by the committee.
Can you please expound on the contents of your letter?
As per the letter, ma'am, we basically informed that there is no official notice from the U.S.
No
Embassy.
official notice. All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
And with respect to the amendment of the existing Philippine extradition law, do you have any comment or manifestation?
May I transfer, ma'am, to my colleague from the Office of Treaties and Legal Affairs. Thank you, ma'am.
Attorney Ayap is recognized.
Thank you, Your Honors. Your Honor, we're here to share information about the role of the Office of Treaties and Legal Affairs of the DFA with regard to the handling of requests for extradition. And as described in the Supreme Court's rules on extradition, that the role of the DFA is to transmit to the central authority the request for extradition upon determining that the request complies with the law and the applicable extradition treaty. So whenever we receive a request for extradition from the foreign missions, such as an embassy, this is transmitted to us through a note verbal along with certain documents supporting the request, like the original or authentic copy of the decision or sentence imposed upon the accused, the a copy of the criminal charge or warrant of arrest, a recital of the acts complained of, the text of the applicable law or a statement of the contents of said law, and some information about the accused and his or her whereabouts. And once we find that these documents are complete, we transmit them to the Department of Justice, Your Honor.
Now let's hear from the AMLA. I remember we requested for update on the freeze order of the assets of Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to all the member of the honorable committee. We apologize, Madam Chair, that shortly after the last hearing, we were not able to provide the requested information. But yesterday, Madam Chair, we transmitted via email an advance copy of a letter containing the desired information. And just this morning, we turned over to the committee secretary the hard copy of that letter, Madam Chair.
Can you please articulate before the committee the contents of your letter? I hope you will understand.
Yeah.
The same was submitted only today, so we didn't have time to go over your letter.
Yes, it contains the nature of assets subject of a freeze order issued by the Court of Appeals, including the number or quantity thereof, Madam Chair.
So a freeze order has been issued already?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. How about the assets abroad?
The same has been the subject of a request for mutual legal assistance, which has been endorsed or transmitted to the Central Authority, Madam Chair. Yeah.
May we know the predicate crime that you considered for the purpose of utilizing the power of AMLA in securing the freeze order from the Court of Appeals?
There are actually three predicate offenses that we utilized in securing a freeze order from the Court of Appeals. One is the violation of the Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003 committed here, and also violation of special protection of children against abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. These two violations, violation of laws, Your Honor, are subject of pending cases, criminal cases actually, pending before the RTC in Pasig, and another one pending in the RTC in Quezon City. That one in Quezon City was actually a result of a request for transfer of venue from the Davao RTC to the QC RTC, Madam Chair. And the other unlawful activity that we utilized is the violation of a felony or offense that is of similar nature to human trafficking that was committed in the U.S. And the documents in relation to that case, Your Honor, is the subject of a request, is one of the subject of a request for mutual legal assistance through the DOJ.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you come across the proposed extradition law of the DOJ?
Not yet.
How about
Madam
the DFA?
Not yet, Your Honor.
Do you have any proposed version of your amendment of the law, which perhaps the committee can consider?
Good morning, Your Honor and honorable members of this committee. We would like to give recommendations and comments on the proposed bill,
All right.
although we haven't.
All right. So it is really my humble opinion that the proposed extradition bill of the DOJ is really comprehensive, that it addresses the gaps that we have identified already during the last hearing. The problem with our existing extradition law, I believe it was not able to assume the situation where the extraditee has cases both in the requested state, in the requesting state. This particular situation was considered totally in the proposed extradition bill of the DOJ now. As a matter of fact, it even went to the extent of considering the Philippines as the requesting state, which means that the extraditee is abroad and the Philippines is the one trying to seek for the extradition of the extraditee to make him responsible and answerable for violations or felonies committed in the Philippines. No? So the committee will be sharing with the AMLA as well as the DFA the copy of this proposed extradition bill from DOJ, so that on our next committee hearing, we will be discussing along with the DOJ the important provisions, most especially the new provisions which are being introduced as amendment to our existing Philippine extradition law, if that is okay with you. Okay. So with the permission of our fellow members, since the concerned agency is not with us today, we will be suspending our committee hearing today on the motu proprio inquiry in aid of legislation, and this will give time as well to all the members to go over the proposed extradition bill, and even to DFA and to AMLA. Do we have the TOJ here? AMLA kayo lahat? No. I hope that everybody will be ready to engage in a very healthy discussion and debate regarding our proposed extradition bill. Okay? So with that, I wish to thank all the committee members, the Committee on Justice staff, Secretariat, COMSEC, our resource persons, simula pa kaninang umaga, from the Bureau of Immigration, from the DOJ, from the, wala palang DOJ, from the Supreme Court, the Department of Foreign Affairs, the AMLA. Maraming salamat po, at we hope to see you again on our next hearing, and I hope that we will all be ready for a healthy and thorough discussion of our proposed amendment to Philippine extradition law. With that, Honorable Rodriguez.
There are two bills that were in the letter addressed to Your Honor from the Department of Justice, the strengthening the legal framework of extradition.
Yeah.
And I find it here attached. But I don't see an act institutionalizing international cooperation. Do we have a copy here?
I only saw the
because this is what
the
we
proposed
have.
extradition bill.
Yeah. How about the other one, Madam Chair?
Do we have a
we
copy
know?
of the second bill?
If we have a copy of the second
Okay.
bill, so that we are able
So
to
the Secretariat is directed to provide a copy of both bills to all the committee members and to our resource persons, one per agency.
Madam Chair, it's here.
Oh, it's
also
there.
included, it is the act, the draft as of September 10. I have the both of them, but they were in separate letters.
Okay.
So thank you. So we have here also the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act. Yeah, that is already here, both of them, and we'll study this, Madam
Okay.
Chair. And we
So-
become co-authors on this.
We wish to articulate that our discussion about Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy is just incidental to our intention to reach an amendment to our very old Philippine extradition bill,
That's correct.
a law which will be responsive to the demands of the present time. No? We need an extradition law which will cover both the temporary and deferred surrender, as well as the situation where the Philippines is either the requesting state or the requested state. Now, we recognize the authors of House Bill number 8 or any of their representative who might be present. This is sponsored by Representatives Ferdinand Martin G. Romualdez, Andrew Julian K. Romualdez, and Jude A. Asidre.
Madam Chair. Let me.
The Honorable Minority Leader Nonoy Libanan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Honorable Jude Asidre called me and he's in a meeting, so he just requested me to sponsor also this House Bill number 8. Thank
You may
Madam
proceed, Your Honor.
Including my bill, Madam Chair? Of course, we are just the same.
Your bill is the third one. With the permission of the Honorable Romualdo, then you may sponsor them all together. House Bill number 8 and House Bill number 118. You may proceed, Maino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I originally filed this bill in the 12th Congress, and when I was Commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration, this was approved by both houses. However, there was a bicameral conference committee meeting, and in that bicam, again, it was approved. In the ratification of this bill, the Senate approved this bill, but the House failed to approve it because it was the last day and there was no quorum, so that here we are again in this process. Madam Chair, this is a 1940 law that the Honorable Commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration is operating on, so that we would notice that this vintage law is no longer responsive to the needs of modern times, especially that we have already the internet, we have modernization with us. So that, Madam Chair, this, if my memory also serves me right, this is the first time that this is approved by LEDAC, by the Legislative Executive Development Authority, where this representation sits. And I think this is high time that we again approve this bill and request the Senate to pass this. This measure seeks to introduce long overdue institutional and structural reforms. It will professionalize the Bureau of Immigration by upgrading positions, improving compensation, and providing better benefits and training for its personnel. These reforms are aimed at ensuring integrity, competence, and efficiency in the enforcement of our immigration and anti-human trafficking laws. Madam Chair, as you have stated, the other bills are quite similar, so that this representation will not object that we just create maybe a technical working group so that some fine-tuning can be done. And at the proper time, I move that we approve this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Lebanan. All your manifestations are duly noted. Before we proceed, Chair acknowledges the Honorable Rene Luis M. Co, Member Kabataan Party List. Thank you, Congresswoman Co, for coming. Now we proceed to our next bill, that is House Bill number 58, sponsored by the Honorable Representative Jordan Jesus M. Romualdo. We recognize the author or his representative to sponsor the bill.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Rufus Rodriguez is recognized.
Camiguin being one of the former sub-provinces of Misamis Oriental. I will take the cudgel for my good friend Jordan Jesus Romualdo. I move that his explanatory note be considered as the sponsorship speech for House Bill 58. So moved, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Romualdo wishes to extend his thanks to you.
Thank you.
Through this letter for sponsoring his bill. Now we proceed to the next bill, House Bill number 1491, authored by the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez and Maximo B. Rodriguez, Jr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to state that I agree with our minority leader, one of the most outstanding commissioners of the Bureau of Immigration, the Honorable Marcelino Libanan. And indeed, 12th Congress, it was approved by both but not ratified by the House. In the previous Congress, 19th Congress, again, there was failure of the Senate to approve it. Madam Chair, this representation has been filing this bill for the sixth time.
Sixth time.
From 2007, because I was a former commissioner of the Bureau of Immigration, and I found my experiences there as really, it really helped me, and it was a very good experience. So today, on my sixth term, I really hope and I thank the Honorable Chair that this is taken up early on in this year when we start our first regular session. And therefore, Madam Chair, I would just like to state that this was Commonwealth Act 613, 1940, before the war. At least the Second World War, not the First World War. So it's really a very old law, and there is a need to really revise it and strengthen the Bureau of Immigration. So I will just also ask that my explanatory note and that of my brother, the Honorable Maximo B. Rodriguez Jr. of Abamin, Abante, Mindanao, will now be considered as our sponsorship speech. Once again, thank you, Madam Chair, and our distinguished colleagues. And then in the proper time, after all have spoken, I will move for Section 48 to directly bring this to the Committee on Appropriations and then to the floor. Of course, I had talked with our representative, the Assistant Secretary, my good friend Anne Louise here. There are some proposals of the DFA, and if we are able to have the Commissioner Viado, to be able to agree to this, then Section 48 will be stated that it will already, with including the amendments, to fast track this, Madam Chair. So thank you very much. In the proper time, I'm going to invoke Section 48 under our rules. Once it's been approved on third and final reading by the House, there's no more need for discussion. But we would just like to give a chance to the DFA, if agreeable to the Commissioner. If not, then we proceed with what we have approved on third reading, which is House Bill 8203. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Either way, you will proceed to Section 48. I just wish to express the confidence of the committee in tackling this modernization bill of the Bureau of Immigration, because for everybody's information, we have two former commissioners of BI who are with the panel of the Committee on Justice. And that is, of course, the Honorable Minority Leader, Congressman Nonoy Libanan, and the Honorable Chair, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez. We are indeed so blessed that we are guided by the expertise and the wisdom of these two former BI commissioners. And speaking of this agency, we are opportuned also to have with us, and we acknowledge the presence of the former Justice Secretary, the Honorable Congresswoman Laila M. De Lima. Ma'am, thank you for coming. Now let us proceed to the next bill. House Bill number 1646, authored by Representatives Miguel Luis Villafuerte, Vincenzo Renato Luigi Villafuerte, Kiyoshi Anthony Horibata, and Terry L. Ridon.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Keith Flores is recognized.
Madam Chair, I have been requested by the sponsors to sponsor this bill, Madam Chair, because they are busy attending to their constituents due to the effect of the typhoon, Madam Chair. And may I request, Madam Chair, that I sponsor it together with Bill 4834, Madam Chair, so that it will just...
The Honorable Keith Flores is allowed to sponsor both 1646 and 4834 with the permission, of course, of the other members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, in both bills, now we would like to move for the adoption of our explanatory note as our sponsorship speech, due to the fact that it has already been previously passed, Madam Chair, and explained. Although earlier, Madam Chair, Attorney Sanya Ziton of the Bureau of Immigration manifested that there were some suggestions for amendments, but I told her to just direct it to Commissioner Viado so that it can be tackled properly at proper time. So, Madam Chair, with that, Madam, we move that the sponsorship speech, the explanatory notes attached to the bill be considered as the sponsorship speech for both bills, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Flores. Now we proceed to House Bill number 2685, authored by the Honorable Representative Jaime Eduardo Mark D. Cuanco. We recognize the sponsor or his representative, please.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Rodriguez is recognized.
Yes, Madam Chair, on behalf of the Chair of the Nuclear Committee, no less than Congressman Mark Cuanco. This is Jaime Cuanco. I move that the explanatory note of House Bill 2685 be considered as the sponsorship speech to be considered by by this committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Rodriguez. Now we proceed to House Bill number 3229, authored by Representative Emilio Bernardino L. Yulo. We recognize the sponsor or his representative, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am pleased and honored to sponsor on behalf of Congressman Bernardino Yulo, House Bill number 3229. He regrets he cannot be here with us today as he is in his district taking care of his flood victims. But as mentioned by our other representatives, it is high time for this bill to be revisited and for us to finally pass an updated version of our Immigration Modernization Act. And I move to adopt Representative Emilio Bernardino Yulo's explanatory note as his sponsorship speech for House Bill 3229. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Subiri. Now we proceed to House Bill number 3599, authored by Representative Jeffrey P. Ferrer. The author or his representative is recognized.
Madam Chair.
Honorable Flores is recognized.
On behalf of Representative Jeffrey Ferrer, I would like to move that the explanatory note attached to the bill be considered as his sponsorship speech, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Flores. And finally, House Bill number 5153, authored by the Honorable Representative Yeda Marie K. Romualdez.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Libanan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Honorable Romualdez requested this representation to represent in her behalf to sponsor House Bill 5153, in as much as the Honorable Romualdez is still busy with relief operations of the typhoon victims. So that, Madam Chair, I further request that the explanatory note of the Honorable Yeda Romualdez be considered as sponsorship speech of House Bill 5153. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Libanan. Now we are done with the sponsorship speeches of the foregoing sponsors of this bill, which we have noted already is very much similar to House Bill number 8203, the one which was approved during the third and final reading of the 19th Congress and which was transmitted to the Senate. Now we will be proceeding to our resource persons for their comments and manifestations on this bill. COMSEC is directed to call our resource persons.
Thank you, Chair. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Anne Halondoon Luis, Assistant Secretary, Office for Consular Affairs.
ASEC Luis is recognized.
Madam Chairperson and honorable members of the Committee on Justice, I wish you all a very good morning, and also to colleagues from various government agencies, stakeholders who are represented in this meeting. First of all, I wish to convey the greetings of Secretary Teresa Lazaro and our thanks as well for the invitation to the DFA to attend this very important hearing. The Department of Foreign Affairs recognizes that the modernization of the Bureau of Immigration is both timely and necessary, in line with the strengthening of the Bureau as an organization. In this regard, the Department is fully supportive of BI's measures and reforms that will enhance the Bureau's operational efficiency, streamline its processes, and improve the welfare and professionalism of its personnel. The Department believes, however, that modernization must proceed with due regard for the existing mandates and authority of our other government agencies. On this note, I wish to note that, among others, the current bill contains a provision giving authority to the Bureau of Immigration to issue all kinds of visas. The DFA reaffirms its position, which it also submitted during the 19th Congress, that the authority to process and issue non-immigrant and immigrant entry visas abroad in the Foreign Service post should remain within the purview of the DFA. In this respect, the DFA respectfully emphasizes that its visa issuing authority is not merely administrative in nature. It is a core consular function grounded on international and domestic laws, including the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, the Administrative Code of 1987, and the Philippine Foreign Service Act of 1991, as further operationalized under the 2002 Codified Visa Rules and Regulations. The DFA likewise stresses that visa decisions abroad have diplomatic and political dimensions that directly impact on bilateral relations with countries, reciprocity agreements, and the country's image in the international community, which falls squarely into the Foreign Service framework and mandate of the DFA. Under the Philippines' two-tiered national gatekeeping system, there is clear demarcation of the mandate and responsibilities of the DFA and of the BI. The DFA exercises diplomatic, consular, and pre-entry functions abroad, while the BI performs immigration control and enforcement within the Philippines territory, thereby maintaining the country's effective two-tiered gatekeeping system. In this regard, and as reflected in the department's position paper, which it submitted to the committee, the DFA respectfully urges that the relevant provisions of the proposed Immigration Modernization Act maintain the current delineation of functions and preserve the DFA's visa issuing authority consistent with established international conventions and domestic laws. In this way, the modernization efforts will strengthen rather than blur the integrity and line between the country's foreign service and the Philippines' immigration systems. I note also, Madam Chair, that in the DFA position paper, we have actually cited the provisions wherein we have submitted alternative wordings, and we would be willing to take this up if you will give us the opportunity. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
That concern of the TFA, ASEC Luis, pertains to the authority to issue non-immigrant and immigrant visa for foreign nationals abroad.
Okay. Madam Chair, I wish to cite that in the existing bill, particularly Section 6A2.
If I may interrupt, ASEC Luis, you are referring to House Bill 8203.
Yes.
The one approved during the previous Congress.
Yes, Madam
You may proceed,
Chairperson.
ma'am.
Yes. And it actually specifies mandate of the BI in the current bill that it would have the power and the authority on issuance of all visas.
Madam Chair, may we have the ASTEC point to us which section is this?
Can you restate the section number?
Section 6.
6.
For reference of the committee members, the DFA representative is referring to House Bill number 8203, the one approved during the previous Congress. Yes. That is section
6A2.
6A2. 6A2.
Section 6A2.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have other manifestations, ASEC?
Well, aside from that, Madam Chair, we also have proposed amendment on the definition of passports and travel documents in the current bill. We note that the new Philippine Passport Act was passed, RA 11983, and its IRR also came out just in 2024. And we just wish that for consistency and harmony of terminologies in the Philippine laws, subject to minor modifications to include passports and travel documents, that it be aligned with what's in the new Philippine Passport Act.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes.
you know again which section you are referring to?
Can we cite the section number of
Section 3.
Section 3? This pertains to the definition of passports and travel documents as contained in House Bill number 8203. The concern of DFA only is to be consistent. Let us adopt the definition provided in the Philippine
In
Passports
the new
Act.
Philippine Passport Act.
That is noted.
Madam Chair, is this, are you referring to paragraph X? This is the one, travel document?
Section 3R, Your Honor.
That's for travel document.
Yes.
Or passport refers to?
Yes.
So to make it easier, what is the proposal, exact proposal from the DFA on how this will be worded?
This is our proposed wording, Your Honor. Passport refers to the ICAO-compliant, machine-readable travel document issued by the relevant and appropriate government, which contains a request to other governments to permit its bearer to pass safely and freely and to provide all lawful aid and protection if needed. And then on the travel document refers to an official document issued by the relevant and appropriate government and is used by the holder for international travel. So that would be making it consistent with the new Philippine
Asek
Passport
Luis, can
Act.
you guide the committee also of the specific section or provision in the new passports law with respect to the definition of passport and travel document you wish to adopt for the purpose of our substitute bill? And you missed to cite also that particular section or provision of 8203 with respect to the definition of passport, unless they are provided both under Section 3R of 8203.
Your Honor, let me just verify the
Yes.
specific provision.
And Madam Chair, may I
Yes,
request
Honorable
our
Rodriguez.
Committee Secretary to get now a copy of the proposed amendments for sections, Section 3, paragraph R, and paragraph X, so that we will be, each member will have those. It's a long redefinition that is given DFA. Can we
Yes.
give now a copy so that
Yes.
we can reproduce it?
Kindly,
Yung dalawa?
in addition to that, ASEC, kindly provide also a copy of that specific definition under the new passports law, which you want to adopt
Yes.
for the purpose of 8203.
Pakikuha na lang. Reproduce it.
Yes, ASEC Luis?
Yes.
Meron na? Reproduce
Yes,
the members
we-
that we given.
You can provide
Yeah,
it
the
now.
Secretariat, the committee, it's in our position paper, the DFA
Okay.
position paper.
So
It's in the position paper.
all those
Yes.
definitions are
All in
incorporated
the-
already in the position
It's
paper.
contained in the
Yes.
position paper.
Do you have any other manifestation? Because if none, we will be proceeding to the concerned agency.
Okay. Madam Chair, may I proceed also under okay. Section. Section
Meron, nandyan. Ito.
Section Z, letter Z of the current House bill on the definition of visa. The DFA also wants to manifest its recommendation that the definition of visas be revised to reflect the mandate of the DFA as the visa issuing authority and the distinction of travel endorsement from admission and stay. So our proposed wording, Your Honor, is the following. Visa refers to an endorsement issued abroad by consular officers at Philippine Foreign Service posts to foreign citizens who have satisfactorily shown credible proof of his or her purpose of entry and eligibility for admission, which serves as a pre-entry authorization by the Philippine government, allowing the foreign national to travel to the Philippines and request permission to enter at a port of entry. End of
This is
wording.
actually related to your first proposed amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
May
that's-
I know how many amendments you are proposing?
There are several.
Okay. So
We, as submitted in our DFA
Yes.
position paper, there are
may
several
we
amendments.
just direct the committee secretary to provide the copy of the position paper of the DFA to the Bureau of Immigration so they can address point by point all the concerned amendments which are being proposed by the Department of Foreign Affairs to House Bill 8203, the one approved during the previous Congress. But the main among these proposals is, of course, the first one. And I wish to assume that the other amendments has relation to the first proposal.
That's a relation. Because
Yes.
there are some following provisions that stem from actually the very first amendment or existing version giving the mandate to issue all visas to the
So I
BI.
assume that when we resolve the differences on the first proposal for the amendment, we will be resolving as well.
Touching the other provisions as well.
The
Yes, Your
other
Honor.
proposed amendments of the TFA.
Yes.
So may we now proceed to the concerned agency. We are recognizing the Honorable Commissioner Biado to make his manifestation for the Bureau of Immigration.
Good morning, Your Honors. If I may make a prepared statement with the permission of the honorable members.
Of course, you may proceed, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Thank you very much for the attention given to this very important bill. We'd like to thank Madam Chairperson Luistro, the honorable members of this particular committee, honorable members of Congress, colleagues in government, and distinguished guests. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee as it deliberates on the proposed immigration modernization bills. These measures come at a crucial moment for the Bureau of Immigration and for the nation's broader security, economic, and global objectives. For more than 80 years, our immigration system has been governed by Commonwealth Act number 613, a law enacted in 1940, long before the advent of digital borders, modern air travel, and the complex network threats we face today. We continue to operate under a legal framework designed for a different era, one shaped by the context of World War II. The Philippines has advanced significantly since then, and the global environment has transformed even more dramatically. It is now imperative that our immigration system keeps pace. Today's realities require a legal and institutional framework that is both modern and agile. Transnational criminal organizations have become increasingly sophisticated. Human trafficking syndicates exploit both physical and digital vulnerabilities. Identity fraud, document manipulation, geopolitically driven migration flows, and emerging public health risks all demand an immigration system equipped with contemporary tools, clear processes, and strong enforcement capacity. The proposed modernization bills directly address these urgent needs. These measures do more than revise outdated provisions. They present a comprehensive reimagining of how immigration governance should operate in the Philippines. They envision a Bureau of Immigration that is efficient in service delivery empowered by modern technology, strengthened in its intelligence and law enforcement capacity, and aligned with ASEAN and global standards. By modernizing our institutional framework, we are able to strengthen our borders while at the same time ensuring that the Philippines remains a welcoming destination for legitimate travelers, investors, students, tourists, and migrants whose presence supports national development. Among the most important features of the proposed law is the strengthening of border security. The creation of specialized intelligence and enforcement units will allow us to detect threats early and respond more effectively to human trafficking, illegal recruitment, document fraud, identity manipulation, and other transnational crimes. When paired with appropriate safeguards and accountability mechanisms, the enhanced authority of immigration officers will enable us to intercept threats at the point of entry, protecting our communities and our national interest. The bill likewise updates the visa classification system, replacing the outdated provisions of CA 613 with a modern and coherent structure that supports economic growth, tourism, international education, specialized employment, and humanitarian protection. The modernization of processes is further strengthened through the institutionalization of digital transformation tools, such as electronic visas, electronic arrival and departure cards, online payments, and automated systems for processing and enforcement. These reforms reduce processing time, minimize face-to-face interaction, promote transparency, and significantly diminish opportunities for corruption. The proposed measures also strengthen the internal structure and human resources of the Bureau. A modern immigration service must rest on a modern organization. The bills establish a clear institutional framework with 10 divisions, each with defined roles and professional qualifications. They promote continuous capacity building, professional growth, and modernized disciplinary mechanisms. They also enhance compensation and benefits and guarantee that no existing employee will experience diminution of rights. These provisions recognize the critical role of immigration personnel who serve as the frontline gatekeepers of the nation. A modern immigration system must also rely on a strong technological foundation. The bill institutionalizes an information and communications technology division that will oversee cybersecurity, systems integration with partner agencies, and the development of digital platforms for visas, border control, and enforcement. In today's environment, borders cannot be managed through paper-based systems. They require real-time data, secure digital infrastructure, and interoperable systems. Digitization ensures efficiency, reduces red tape, and promotes transparency and accountability at every stage of the immigration process. The proposed reorganization of the Bureau is designed to be methodical, orderly, and humane. It protects the tenure, compensation, and rights of employees, while ensuring that they are given opportunities for skills upgrading and professional development. Modernization must proceed with compassion, and reform must be balanced with stability. Meaningful change must always honor the dignity and contributions of the workforce. Honorable members, immigration modernization is no longer optional. It is essential to national security, to our economic development aspirations, and to our competitiveness as a nation engaged with the world. These bills equip us with stronger tools to secure our borders, better systems to serve the public, advanced technology to manage risk, clearer and fairer processes for foreign nationals, and a professionalized and well-supported workforce. The Bureau of Immigration expresses its full support for the passage of these measures. We stand ready to work closely with Congress, the Executive Department, and all stakeholders to shape an immigration system that reflects the aspirations of a progressive, modern, and forward-looking Philippines. Our immigration system serves as the nation's front door, and with these reforms, we ensure that this doorway is secure, efficient, transparent, and truly worthy of the Filipino people. Thank you, and good morning to everyone.
The chair wishes to express that I believe the members agree with all the justifications supporting the modernization of the Bureau of Immigration. Nonetheless, there is one main concern of the DFA which the chair wishes the Bureau of Immigration to respond. Can we please address Commissioner Viado? The first proposed amendment of the DFA, this concerns the authority to issue immigrant and non-immigrant visa for foreign nationals abroad.
Your Honor, we believe that this matter has been thoroughly scrutinized and tackled in the previous Congress. So we believe that this might be a rehash already of matters that were taken up previously. And the proposed Immigration Act has been, as stated by the Honorable Congressman Rodriguez, has been refiled ever so often. And I think it's been for the past 8 or 9 Congresses that this bill has been filed already. So it is high time that we modernize the Bureau of Immigration, its processes and its workforce. And we believe to address the issue raised by the Department of Foreign Affairs, that the power to issue non-immigrant and immigrant visas is an inherent power of the BI, of the Bureau of Immigration. Although there are other agencies that can process and issue visas, such as the DFA, the Philippine Retirement Authority, and various economic zones, the BI remains the lead agency in the administration of immigration laws, including the issuance of all visas. In fact, except for entry visas, all visas require BI clearances, regardless of the visa issuing agency. Any derogatory record involving an applicant has to go through us. We have to issue any record which is derogatory. So it really goes to the Bureau of Immigration. Likewise, an entry visa may be canceled and withdrawn by the Bureau of Immigration upon entry, Your Honor. And the previous law expressly vests the BI with the exclusive authority to determine the admissibility of foreign nationals entering the country, to investigate and act upon violations of immigration laws, and issue, cancel, or revoke visas. That is the stand, Your Honors, of the Bureau of Immigration as far as the